Total War Warhammer 3 is a game filled with opportunity. There are dozens of races to choose from, and each of them have their own unique flavor and way to play the game. This guy is your average British person.
Birmingham is a fucking shithole!
Well, this guy is what the Catholic Church says will happen to you if you engage in a homosexual relationship. Is it worth it? In today's video, we are going to be playing as Mannfred von Karstein, a blood-sucking lawyer that just lost his job at Nagash, Karstein & Karstein law offices. See, Big Daddy Nagash recently found out that Mannfred lied when he said he passed the bar and kicked him out.
You're fired. What?
Eager to earn his way back to where he was, Mannfred is determined to set out and find the 8 lost law textbooks of Nagash scattered around the world, pass the bar, and finally, make partner. Immediately upon joining the world, it became clear I had my work cut out for me. Without the high-paying job, Mannfred had been forced to sell his luxurious Romanian estate and trade it in for the dry sands of mid-Saharan Africa. Just like in real life, Africa is home to European colonialists, Egyptian mummies, literal dinosaurs, and demons from hell. We really had our work cut out for us. Together, Mannfred and his good buddy / roommate, Kevin, made quick work of our starting province.
Watch out, watch out, watch out, watch out!
Quickly securing it and looking to take out the nearby European Catholics before they attempted to improve the lives of the locals. We summoned Mannfred's charming, yet simple, brother, Rozov, and came up with a battle strategy. Hurl the entire homeless population of our nation at the enemy to tire them out, then send in the actual soldiers to clean up afterwards. As it would turn out, years of playing with the meat of little boys is not a transferable skill when faced with a literal wall of meat. So we sent those priests packing. The vampire factions of Total War Warhammer have a unique mechanic. Whenever a major battle occurs with lots of casualties, it leaves behind a battleground site where more advanced units can be recruited than what would normally be available to us. And by turn 10, Mannfred's army was starting to look a bit like a man that chases a woman at night. Scary, yet necessary. Clearly threatened by a recent expansion and sensing the war that was to come, local African warlord Setra the Imperishable decided to be proactive.
It seems I am built different.
And declared war on us, captured our capital as a show of force. Sorry to interrupt the video class, but it's time for a pop quiz. Okay, now who can tell me who would win? An army of well-disciplined, thought-out, and organized professional soldiers that have served their realm for thousands of years, or literally 12 zombies and their mentally handicapped boss? Mannfred and his armies of wage slaves quickly dealt with Setra the Very Perishable, and then I spent the next 8 turns hunkering down and using battlegrounds to further upgrade Mannfred's armies. We raised an entire legion of high-tier undead infantry, a giant bat, a giant undead bat, we still had Kevin, and we raised a few ghost horses too. It was a good thing we did all this too, because we were about to be attacked yet again.
Foreshadowing is a narrative device in which suggestions or warnings about events to come are dropped or planted.
With 3 full provinces under my belt and a rather high-tier army, I decided it was time to start working towards my first book. See, most of the books are north, so naturally, I had my armies positioned in the north to win a sneak attack. Fueled by the spirit of the rising sun, Tic-Tac-Toe and his dinosaur armies declared a surprise war on me and swiftly seized the town of Antok. Much like the real Japan, this would prove to be a fatal mistake. See, at this point, Mannfred was level 12, which means he had unlocked and upgraded the spell Wind of Death. While the lizards were busy studying the blade, I was in the lab, peeing into bleach bottles and redefining the meaning of the word war crime. Fighting the lizard men proved to be akin to fighting a busload of first graders. Spray them with enough mustard gas, they stopped moving. I was finally able to tame Jurassic Park and add another 2 provinces to my collection. Surely now, I was free to head north and would no longer have to worry about the south.
Foreshadowing is a narrative device.
With the lizards properly pacified, my eye turned back north. I took a brief moment to finish off Mannfred's quest battles, and then it was off to war. I wanted books. The books were north. but I couldn't exactly leave the south undefended. So I recruited a new army, captained by the illustrious Grimby, shoved him chock full of the mangiest men at my disposal, and crowned him Warden of the South. There he would sit and wait while I turned my attention to the problem. This is Scarbrand, a testosterone-fueled rage demon on a rampage that puts Karens everywhere to shame. The initial plan was to take out Scarbrand early while he was weak, but while I was distracted in the south, he was busy feasting. I declared war and quickly found myself face to face with the enemy. Thankfully, my tactic of gas them all still proved to be pretty effective. I pushed Scarbrand out of Arabia and had Rozov continue the offensive northward, while Mannfred took a detour south to claim his first book. It only took 50 turns and 3 hours of my life, which bodes well, as I was worried this playthrough may end up being a little long.
Foreshadowing is a narrative device.
1 down, 7 to go. With the offensive on Scarbrand going well, I was beginning to feel good about my position in the world, but then... the French! Like something out of my own personal hell, I was forced to interact with a French woman. Responding, like any reasonable person would when interacting with a French person, I hurled the full force of my military might at her. Like a meteor, I crashed into her, creating an extinction-level event even worse than what the dinosaurs experienced. Swiftly dismantling her armies, I mopped both her and the remainder of Scarbrand's forces up, and sat back for a moment as my nation entered into an age of peace that lasted exactly 1 turn before I got a message from a nearby mining company. It seems their workers are on strike, and they want my help in dealing with the situation. As with every protest, the best way to quiet the crowds is with a steamroller, and I quickly rolled over them. After this, I sat back for a moment as my nation entered into an age of peace that lasted exactly 1 turn before the fucking bird demon with strabismus declared war. Thank you, Creative Assembly, for this truly engaging game of whack-a-mole. This is Kairos. He's a bird demon and has the power to be a real shitbag. He can change settlement ownership without a war, cause armies to take attrition randomly, or make every battle an ambush battle. Cause why the fuck not? Needless to say, fighting him is not a very engaging experience. At this point, I had 5 armies, and an income to support even more. I quickly raised a 6th army in the south, and set a veteran of the Scarbrand War, Walmond, down to assist. An elaborate game of cat and mouse began where Kairos would ambush me, I'd win the ambush battle, his army would escape, and then do it again in a few turns, and no matter how many battles I'd win, he wouldn't accept peace. This was starting to weigh on my mental a little bit. With the south somewhat stable, albeit annoying, I turned my main attention back to claiming the books. The closest book was held by Cleopatra and her army of Bangles groupies, and unfortunately for her, I now boarded her. I declared war, and after auto-resolving away an entire army because I refused to do city battles in Warhammer 3, I started slowly but surely pushing her back. As we approached the 100-turn mark with only 1 book under my belt, I decided to increase the pace on taking land. I was confident I'd be able to handle a 3-front war, and thus declared war on the primitive British tribes to my north.
I'm fucking disgusted, mate. I don't know what to say.
We bisected Cleopatra's land, and I was on a high. I saw victory in my grasp, but naturally, when you're trying to reach the top, there are people looking to tear you down. Turns out, Chuck McGill had a problem with my quest to gain back my bar license and declared war on me. And much like an unwanted child, my mental state ended up in the dumpster. With my mental in the toilet and an ever-growing desire for my nightmare to just be over, I suicide-charged Cleopatra's capital to try and claim the 2nd book. Forced to face the consequences of my actions, Mannfred and his armies now found themselves face-to-face with the full might of the dwarves and Egyptian armies. And on half strength, I thought it was over. Until this happened. I won the battle, and claimed the 2nd book, but it didn't change the fact that I was caught in an endless cycle. I needed some way to break out, and then I had an epiphany. If Sisyphus was trying to reach the top of the hill, wouldn't it be a lot easier if he just let go of the boulder? Is he stupid? If my goal was to claim all the books, I didn't need an intact empire to do it. We were gonna cross that finish line, but it would be by dragging a rotting corpse across it. I took my armies and simply walked up, abandoning the defense of my empire. Take a good look at these borders, because they would never look like this again. Rozov's offensive on the British was going very well, and we had pushed them entirely off the continent. Meanwhile, Mannfred's forces were pushing to the city of Karak 8 Peaks. which had the third book, and was weirdly controlled by Imric, the knife-eared scalefucker. There's not much to say about this one. We slammed that boy down on his bad dragon and sent him on his way. Book 3, acquired. Surely it gets easier from here.
Foreshadowing.
At this point, I had 9 armies. 4 were pushing north, under the command of Mannfred, while 5 were pushing west, under the command of Rozov. As these 2 adventures were radically different, I'll now split the remainder of this playthrough into 2 parts. Mannfred's goal was to reach the book in Sylvania, his homeland. Between him and his goal was a host of Europeans, Brexit supporters, and Magic the Gathering players. Not to mention, my realm was quickly collapsing behind me under the combined might of the Bird Demon, Cleopatra, and Chuck McGill. I started pushing into the brilliant Gold Masks lands, sweeping through without much resistance, but ran into an issue. See, the Rat Men had friendly relations to me, and yet they were still the biggest thorn in my side. Much like Prince Philip in the days before his death, my armies were suffering from the bubonic plague and slowly burning to death. It was in this weakened state, rapidly being pursued by orcs from the east, when I stumbled into Blackfire Pass, the gateway to Europe, only to come face to face with a being out of my worst nightmare, Boris Johnson, the British Prime Minister. We could not go this way. Mannfred and his armies retreated, and due to depleting funds from my crumbling empire, I had to sacrifice a few of the armies supporting Mannfred. His force of 4 was now 2. We limped towards the European Fort Saul, took a deep breath, and sprinted past the British peoples that were currently ravaging Europe. With a final push, we made it to Sylvania, auto-resolved the battle for the book, and claimed our prize. To save on funds, I then disbanded these 2 armies. Now, you may be saying to yourselves right now, geez, if the push north was that bad, just for 1 book, I can't imagine what the push west was like to secure 4. It was easy. It was so easy. Forced to divert away from the newly spawned orc armies that blocked our path, we skirted around the southern peninsula, bringing us into contact with the Wood Elves. Fighting the Wood Elves is a lot like placing your balls directly into a hydraulic press. While some may enjoy it, doctors wouldn't recommend doing it. While one army did inevitably get caught and destroyed by them, we were mostly able to avoid them and escape their territory. We took a quick pit stop at the offline TV gamer house to replenish and secured another book before we headed overseas. Within a few turns, I began to notice a flaw in abandoning my empire. I was almost out of money. With only 1 turn of income remaining, I made landfall in paradise. This is the elf homeland of Ulthuan, otherwise known as Femboy Island. After all my hardships and struggle, I was rewarded with heaven. Much like the inhabitants, I quickly found that the settlements of Femboy Island were ripe and plentiful, and the low testosterone of the locals made them unable to put up much of a fight. Combine that with my love of destroying public infrastructure, and my income issues were solved. I carved out a new empire here, and I was quickly able to dismantle the elvish forces and claim not 1, but 2 books. This nightmare was finally coming to an end. I sent Rozov down to scout the South American continent, only to come face to face with my old rival, fucking Kairos. Thankfully, he was at war with the locals. While the locals were busy with him, I quickly captured a Spanish conquistador settlement to replenish, raise a quick supporting army of zombies, push into the jungles, auto-resolved the final battle. Finally, after all the trials and tribulation, Mannfred had finished the quest and was free to begin studying for the bar. As he does that, and we begin to bring this video to a close, I want to thank all of you for watching and joining me on this journey. Please remember to like, comment, subscribe. You know the drill. Fuck you, CA.